Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Experience Kills, in which we are, me and Richard here today, forcing happiness into our minds and into our bloodstreams to talk about video games and things that are great and a distraction from the crushing reality that is the impending Brexit coming on March the 29th, because frankly, the UK is going to self-destruct and we're all going to probably die starving in the next year or so. Yeah! Play video games, though, because that'll make us feel better. Woo!
Forcing happiness. That is it. Like, anyone that's watching this now and thinks I look miserable, this is actually 100% up on what I was a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Fuck,
So
I'm depressed.
instead of thinking about that, we're gonna talk about some games and stuff. But before we get into the games and things, I saw Captain Marvel last night, Richard.
Did you?
Yeah, you gonna go see it?
Probably, yeah. There's a couple of things I want to see. I want to see fighting with my family as well.
I want to see that, but I can wait for that to come to like TV and Netflix and whatever. I think,
think?
or it'll be on the network, won't it? Probably.
I don't know. I can't. It's not made by WWE, is it? They just
I
let it happen.
think they're involved. I think they're involved, at least producing. You know, there's some money there. I would have thought. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
I listened to an interview with Stephen Merchant, I think he wrote and directed, didn't he? But he was talking about how they let him film after one of their Raw shows. So it didn't feel like it was part of their business as such.
Oh, okay.
So sort of let him in on it, you know.
No, that's okay. I didn't realize that. I just figured if The Rock's in it and they're basically a biopic of a WWE superstar, you'd think they'd be involved, but maybe not.
No,
what else did you want to see then? Captain Marvel, Fight My Family.
The Kid Who Would Be King looks cool, but
I want to see that because I love Adam and Joe, and I really like Attack the Block, which was Joe Cornish's previous movie. Indeed. However, reviews not great. I mean, again, I could probably watch that on Netflix. Do you know what I mean? I could wait for that. But no, Captain Marvel, no spoilers. I enjoyed it a great deal more than Ant-Man and the Wasp. And watching it on International Women's Day felt really right. And it is a really good, positive female role model character, and it's done really well. And I really like how they did some stuff with the Skrulls, some great twists, some great ways in which it's contextualized within the Marvel Universe. Really good post-credit stuff, and a fantastic sort of scene-stealing performance from Goose the Cat throughout this film. He is incredible.
Okay. So this is Marvel's first female-led film. How does it compare to Wonder Woman?
I liked it more than Wonder Woman. I thought Wonder Woman was all right. But but I'm biased. I have more of an affinity for the Marvel movies than I do the DC films anyway. And this is space sci-fi adventure compared to sort of World War I set, somewhat dour at times, kind of setting for Wonder Woman. I thought this was just way more vibrant and exciting and interesting. I thought the twists and stuff and the reveals were a lot braver than maybe you got in Wonder Woman, which was quite, if you think about it, quite by the numbers. You know, there's one, you know, they made the villains very clear in Wonder Woman. There's a lot more nuance in Captain Marvel about protagonists and antagonists. So yeah.
Maybe Wonder Woman benefited from being part of a relatively lackluster stable because
it does stand out. Damn right it did. Yeah. Certainly stood out because of it. This is a really good showing though, and I'm even doubly, triply excited now for Endgame. I didn't think I could be more hyped for like the end of next month. Something else to distract me from the impending Brexit. You know, at least we'll still have films to go and see. Hopefully,
you reckon? Not message films.
if the world's if it turns into anarchy in the streets, possibly not. But you know, we'll fingers crossed still be able to go see Endgame. But no, mate, you should go see it. It's really good. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. So we're coming back here with an episode 2 of Experience Kills because, you know, it's been about, what, 3 weeks? Not quite a month, I think, since we did the last one.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
But in that time, there's been some big games out. Me and Richard played a lot of Anthem. We did an in-depth review discussion, just under half an hour, I think, of us talking about Anthem, really getting into it. Had some great feedback on it. There was a comment that said, which I really liked, that basically summed it up as, you're the only people I've seen to look at this game for what it is and not for what it isn't. And I thought that really hit the nail on the head about how we approach games and and specifically how we approached Anthem, because in spite of its flaws and its problems, of which there are a few definitely, I had a great time, and now we're both in the end game and still enjoying it. And you're playing it; you've played it even loads more than I have, haven't you? You've really, really gone for it in the last week or so.
I'm pretty much up to what are those difficulty levels called? Grandmaster, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm up to Grandmaster 2 pretty much now. Power level 470-ish, I think.
Nice. Have you had any legendaries drop?
Yes.
So the things above Masterworks.
Yes,
So you
I
have
have.
had some.
I've got
How
one.
many have you had? Are they good rolls? I mean, I haven't spoken to you about this.
I've only had the one.
Okay.
And it's I think a component piece, so I don't have any legendary weapons yet.
Okay.
But, yeah, I am just about to embark into Grandmaster 2 difficulties, so I expect a few more. There's been some talk about how the numbers don't mean very much in Anthem. Have you heard this?
Oh yes. So in the last week, there was a report that and acknowledged by BioWare as being a bug, that the level 1 starter, say assault rifle, was doing more damage than a legendary level 47 assault rifle, because of the way in which the scaling had broken, to enable low-level players to play with high-level players. So the numbers coming off the enemies were completely inaccurate, because you could basically kill an enemy with 3 shots from the level 1, and it would be 5 shots from the level 47, or something to that equivalence. So there have been some problems discovered around that. Also, things like talking about the legendary drops. A lot of people complaining about how they aren't great, that it's like the frequency of the drops is tuned incorrectly, for anything inside the strike equivalents, which are the strongholds, or inside missions. But if you go and up against mobs, just regular elite and legendary mobs in the overworld, the drops are actually really, really high. So that's the best way for farming legendaries, which of course is completely broken. You should be getting more legendaries, or the same amount of legendaries, out of doing, say, Grandmaster 2 level strongholds, surely, out of the chests. But you're actually not. It's tuned far too low. So this is what you'd expect, though. That kind of bug, more so than the leveling bug, is what you'd expect from. It's not a bug, is it? It's a tuning issue. And when you've got a live game, loot game, yeah, there is a degree that the players are testing this and feeding this back, and BioWare seems incredibly active in patching, in feedback. They are constantly on that subreddit that I frequent to keep an eye on what's going on, and they are very vocal about the problems and how they are fixing them. It's not stopping you enjoy it, is it?
No, I was just going to say, I'm still playing it and still enjoying the game. For all the talk of how fake the numbers are, and it's just massaging a player's ego by watching numbers go up meaninglessly. So, well, I don't know. If that makes me shallow, fine. I'm still enjoying this game a hell of a lot. Just the loop of flying around, hitting the ground hard, and then just shooting a load of people is awesome. It just feels so good to do that.
Yep.
And I'm not getting bored of it after, what is it, a couple of weeks it's been out now?
Yep, something like that.
Still into it. It's good.
Yeah. I will get back into it. What I've found myself doing, though, because there's a new season of content that's just landed in Destiny 2, I find myself going back to that to check that out, because it's the season of the loot shooter, it would seem, right now. We've got Division 2 coming next week, which I'm very much looking forward to playing, but and I've played both of the betas off. But yeah, Destiny 2's got the season of the Drifter has just begun. And regardless of any story stuff and quest stuff, one of the things they've done with the Season of the Drifter, as an acknowledgement to the problem of the previous season, which was the Black Armory, is that there was cool new endgame content in Black Armory. However, if you weren't power leveled high enough, you were basically locked out from participating in it. So what they've done to acknowledge that problem is they've made it so you can just get these 4 simple bounties from the Drifter, which just encourage you to do the base kind of tenets of gameplay, which is play a little bit of Crucible, play a Strike, play some Gambit, play some open world, free roam. And by doing that, it rewards you with 640 power level gear, which takes you up to where you need to be to enjoy the content in the new season, and the previous season for that matter. And then you'll be able to be high enough as well to do things like the raids and the open world areas, the end game area and stuff like that. That was in the last big content drop. So they've made their changes. They've thought about this, and I was, that game still plays great. Like, it is a fantastic feeling shooter, Destiny 2, and I just had really good fun. I put about 2 or 3 hours into it during the week in the evening. I might play a little bit more today before Division hits next week. But that game is still great. That game is still great. I love that world, the lore. It still looks fantastic, still plays fantastic. So, yeah. So it's good. If you are a season pass holder and you were a bit put off by the kind of difficulty curve on the last content drop, it's like, yeah, I don't have time to dedicate to this. This can get you back in. This will mean you can play and experience those new things. And those bounties work as a nice little refresher. Like, oh yeah, you remember all these things you enjoyed? Oh yeah, Crucible. You're even quite like Crucible. That's quite cool the way the multiplayer works. 6v6 battles, and they've got a mayhem playlist in there at the moment as well, which means you can have loads of supers really quickly and throwing grenades constantly, and it's absolutely bonkers. So yeah, lots of good reasons to get back onto Destiny. It's the first drop, actually. It's the first real content push since Bungie went indie and left Activision's umbrella officially. And I wonder if this is an acknowledgement of that. You have to wonder, would it be within Activision's interest to force people to spend a lot more time playing that game, grinding to get their levels up? Or was that a design choice? The more time you spend in there, maybe the more appealing microtransactions look and things like that, I wonder. So you have to consider that, I suppose, to a degree. Could be complete conspiracy theory, but it definitely looks like Bungie wants to make changes and wants to make improvements. So yeah, it's cool. I think what they said was, I watched the vid doc about it, is like, this is the first, they've got a new pipeline in place for content, and I think they're going to be looking at much more frequent updates, much more frequent content drops. And by the sounds of things, there's no real plan for a D3 at the moment. So I think what we might see is a lot more content in D2 before a sequel happens. It's well known that Destiny 2 happened because Activision basically made them do it, as quickly as it came out. After the promise that Destiny 1 was going to be this platform, D2 came only 2 years later. So
because they had such problems generating new content within Destiny.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the way it was designed.
That's what was reported, but you have to start wondering, man, how much of this is coming from the publisher about how the content is produced and how it's doled out to the customer, to the player. Do you know how much has been coming through from above? You have to wonder, don't you? I mean, you really do. The fact that they've ended this deal the way they have early, there must have been there is a reason Bungie wanted out, because was their forced plans, their release schedules from Activision, were they hampering the development and the way in which Bungie wanted to produce content for the players? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, they wanted to be independent. They were in a position to be independent, and they did it. I've not heard any complaints about the treatment at Activision, so I think it might be unfair to cast aspersions in that direction. But yeah, who knows?
I mean, the thing that makes me think about this about Activision doesn't have a lot right now sort of going for them. They've got a declining Call of Duty. They've got Blizzard, which hasn't produced a great deal in quite a while, other than Overwatch, but and that keeps making money for them. But there's not a lot else coming from there. They must be looking at their properties and trying to squeeze as much revenue out of what they have at the moment. When was the last time we got like a new IP out of Activision? You can complain about EA all you like, but I feel like they actually let games get made. They actually have stuff come from their studios that you haven't seen before. Whereas Activision, it's so many sequels and just the same stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I honestly can't think of one. So
it's been a while. Overwatch? Yeah. Would it have been Overwatch? Was the last one?
Maybe that's
because we just EA just dropped Apex Legends. It's just dropped Anthem. Big new IPs. But what are we getting out of Activision that used to be this huge juggernaut, this powerhouse, and it's just grinding to a halt. But we're going to segue. We'll be talking about that kind of thing with a news story coming up. We are reaching an end of a generation. To be fair, now is perhaps not the time to be dropping a lot of new IP and to be thinking about that next gen. So yeah, we'll talk about that.
It does feel like we're nearly there, doesn't it? Like with there's no Forza this year, stuff like that. You think, well, that's the sign, isn't it? Everyone's gearing up now for the new stuff.
I think we might have a really quiet fall. I think where there's normally a lot of games, there might be a complete sort of tumbleweed. There'll be a Call of Duty, but what else are we going to see? I mean, it's looking really quiet. Look, we don't really, in this new format of podcast, we don't have to stick to the script too closely. So I'll mention it now. So EA will not be doing a press conference at E3.
No.
Joining Sony and abstaining from that kind of big announcement platform. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? For the end of the year.
Well, if you put 2 and 2 together, Microsoft are going to have a pretty big show this year, big by virtue of the fact that no one else is there. Microsoft will be at E3. Rumor is that they'll be showing their new console hardware. So there'll be 2 varieties of that, one that's diskless and one.
Well, there's been rumors this week about the diskless one. So that's not going to be at E3 because it's quite possibly going to be out by the time we get to May.
What do you mean?
So it's because it's the diskless Xbox One S basically.
Oh no, it's 2 different things. So there's the rumor is that there's going to be a refresh of the Xbox One lineup. So that will be a new version of the Xbox One S, and then another version without a disk drive, and that will feed into a sort of mirror release for the new Xbox platform, which will have a diskless version and a full fat version with all the hardware.
But yeah, the rumor is this diskless reiteration of the S will be out way before E3, so they may not well need to announce anything because they're just going to put out a new iteration.
Oh, maybe, yeah. But when I say they're going to show hardware at E3, I'm talking the next gen stuff.
Yeah,
I think it will be time to show that. If that's the case, and EA, Activision, whoever aren't going to be there, then the reason might be they don't have that next gen stuff lined up just yet.
So EA has said there will be there. There won't be a conference. They'll have their EA Play, kiosks and stuff like that off site because they've not been at E3 proper for a while now. But they're going to show the new Respawn Star Wars game, Fallen Order, but that's getting actually announced at the big Star Wars conference festival in April anyway. So that's not going to. They don't need the platform for that at the show. So let's speculate. Do we see Bethesda? I'm not sure we see Bethesda, honestly.
I'm not sure I'd miss them, to be honest.
I mean, can you imagine getting up on that stage and being like, and Todd Howard comes out and goes, "So Fallout 76, screwed the pooch on that one, boys. Yeah, sorry. It's easy to forget after this like heavy negative press cycle on Anthem, which mean you don't think is justified. Man, Fallout 76 is so much worse. Like that was honestly one of the worst games I've reviewed in quite a while. It was such a train wreck, and they are making some progress improving it, but it's still far from fixed and far from being what it should have been, even at release. So yeah, it's I can't. So what would they have to show? So they announced Starfield is coming last year, right? So they're not going to have anything else to show for that. They announced there was an Elder Scrolls that was going to happen, but it's way too soon to say anything about that. The other thing is Doom Eternal, but Doom Eternal had a big showing at QuakeCon. It doesn't really need to be at E3. You could have some playable kiosks for it, but we know that's coming, and that'll be great. That'll probably be the end of the year from them. There's that new Wolfenstein thing, but it's more like an expansion than a full game. With the one with the sisters, BJ's daughters, that got announced last year. But again, maybe they've got lots of unannounced stuff, but I feel like if they do, it's all next gen at this point, isn't it? So you can't really show it this year.
That's it. Yeah, I think if they do show something like Doom, you can overexpose something like that.
Yep.
Best sitting on it until it's near release, I would have thought.
I mean, if you think about how much they showed at QuakeCon, they showed a lot. It was like 20 minutes of gameplay. I mean, you don't really need to do the same again, do you, at E3?
No.
So I think I'd say it's unless they've got like some big surprises. That obviously Rage will be out by the time E3 rolls around. So I'm not really sure what they'd have. I can't see an Evil Within or anything like that sequel coming for this generation if they wanted to bother with it at all. So then, right, Ubisoft. Now, this time, Ubisoft E3 last year was, oh God, we're about to be bought out by Vivendi. We love you guys. Please don't let this happen. If you remember that quite weird conference where it felt very much like Eve was saying goodbye. But thankfully, that didn't happen. They were able to avoid that buyout. They're staying independent. They're staying this family-run business, as it were. And that's great. So did they come out at a conference and just do sort of like a lap of woo, happy days? Because it's no Assassin's Creed this year.
No.
There won't be a Crew because Crew 2 only came out last year and was garbage. What else have we got from Ubisoft that could show up? I mean, so the Division 2 is about to launch, but that means obviously that won't be there.
Yeah.
We have a Watch Dogs 3, or is that something, did they come out with Watch Dogs 3 and say next gen?
I was just going to say, I think if we see Watch Dogs, it'll be a next gen game.
Yeah.
I can't see that appearing just yet, unless when the same happened with Watch Dogs. Actually, when Watch Dogs was first announced, we saw that before we knew what platforms it was going to be on.
We did, yeah.
So yeah, that's a possibility if they sort of try and reheat that old pie.
I think historically Ubisoft has been really tight with Microsoft, right? And Microsoft being super aggressive, leading into this next generation already with acquiring studios, and I think they're going to be going hard for cross-marketing deals. So I think if Ubisoft's conference comes after Microsoft, which I think it normally does, they could come out with, this will be on the next Xbox. This will be on the next Xbox. This will be on the next Xbox. If they do announcements, they could easily do that. I think it's less likely we won't see Ubisoft because they're kind of right now, in many ways, the biggest publisher outside of the console holders, because they're actually putting out IP that's different and trying things and innovating and pushing the generation. Whereas EA has got so safe, and Bethesda is still in many ways quite small, that they're not really doing a lot. We just talked about how Activision hasn't really put out a new game in what feels like forever. So I think Ubisoft could come out with some like interesting announcements for the next gen, but I don't know. I think they're more likely to be there than Bethesda.
How do you think they're going to play it in terms of pushing games as a next generation experience? Because we've had with Xbox One X, we've seen how they've tried to blur the lines and say like no one's going to be left behind. Anything that works on the X is going to work on all the older consoles. I think we'll still see that.
It's so tricky, isn't it? I mean, I don't think Xbox is going to want to say any games on the next gen can't play. I really think that whatever the next hardware is, those games will play on your current Xbox One. I think what we'll get from them at this conference is going to be possibly a big announcement about the streaming thing, the thing that's rumored to be coming to Switch, to smart TVs, to every platform going. If they come out and say, yeah, if you have our new console, it'll run 4K native. It will run with the volumetric lighting and all that stuff, with the ray shading thing. That's the hot news thing. If it does that, on your hardware, it will play best on that console. However, you can play this on the Nintendo Switch, on your smart TV, on your set-top box, on your laptop. You can play every game everywhere. That's a huge. Can you imagine how huge that would be? They're basically just on your mobile phone, on your iPad. You could literally play every Xbox game you buy on every device you own. Yes, they won't. Maybe there'll have to be sacrifices that you have to make to do that, and therefore that's how you still promote their new hardware as a reason to buy it. But and they can sell it cheap. We're going to take out the disk drive, bring down the cost. You don't have to pay for Blu-ray licensing that way, right? Because let's be honest, who's buying physical media now? So here's your new Xbox One, whatever it's called. It's gonna play all these new games with volumetric, like 4K native. You can play games instantly if you choose to stream them, or if you download them to the internal drive, they'll play with all these bells and whistles, and it's going to be $399.
Yeah.
And then what did PlayStation do? How do you counter that? How do you counter that? I mean, it's like there's probably a good reason they're not at this show, because I mean, that's the question: is it, do they announce hardware, or do they just go hard on this streaming service and be like, we don't care about hardware anymore? They could just say that. We're getting out of the hardware business, because why do we need it?
Do Microsoft?
Yeah.
They won't do that.
I mean, they could, though. I mean, the way they're positioning this streaming, man, if they think it's as good as it is, you don't need hardware for it. Think of the costs of that hardware of a new hardware generation. You could just be like, play it on your mobile, mate. Play it on any smart TV. You buy a controller.
I think you kind of need that as it's the sort of paperweight for their business, isn't it? Like, that's
it's a cornerstone, isn't it?
Yeah, that anchors them down, and anything else sort of spirals from that. I think if you unpin the console from their business plan, and it's obvious that they're just a services platform, I think that takes away some of the identification that people feel with that
the brand, the prestige.
The brand.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I would rather like it was the other option. You buy this new Xbox, it gives you all the best experience you can. You have you have the game locally, you got 4K, proper 4K native. That I think would be a big deal, because a lot of the games actually aren't there on that. They have to do half measures most of the games. You come out with all that, and it would be anyway at $399, no disc, because I long ago gave up on discs anyway. I think that would be absolutely incredible. It would just destroy. It'd be huge. So yeah, that's. And I think Ubisoft could team up with them. I think there's going to be lots of cross-marketing deals. I think they're going to come out with some big game announcements from these new studios, don't you? I mean, they're going to be like, they could just literally trot out 20 new games, couldn't they, for the next gen? Launching on.
I think it might be too early, because they've bought up a lot of studios, but only in the past year or 2 years. And if you factor in that they're going to be working on new hardware that's not finalized, these games aren't going to be coming out in the next few months.
But
they don't want to repeat the mistakes that they've made before with announcing. They've been forced into a corner with hardly any exclusives, and then having to talk about them way earlier than they should have done. And too many have fallen by the wayside. So you've got stuff like Fable Legends, Scalebound, big cornerstone exclusives that they've pinned everything on that just don't exist.
Yeah, but you have to take some risks at the same time. If you're launching a new console generation and you want to convince people that it makes sense to buy this new hardware, even if you've just got a target render or a CGI, we hope it looks this good trailer when it comes out, you're kind of gonna have to, aren't you? I mean, you're gonna have to take some punts, because if you just play it too safe, nobody's gonna get excited. Nobody's gonna want to adopt that.
No, I think it depends on. I think that depends on how good Halo Infinite looks. They could.
Well, the rumors about I've heard some very interesting things about Halo Infinite recently. That basically that game could come out tomorrow.
Yeah,
but they're holding on to it. They had a game, because if you think about how long it was since Halo 5 came out, they've had a Halo 6 equivalent ready for a while now, but they've instead scaled up the concept to be this huge new game as a service Halo experience for the next generation. And because it feels weird, because like we've been treading water on this final chapter of this trilogy for so long now, that they're pivoting it into something truly groundbreaking, that it's going to kind of be this literally Halo forever on this next console. So I think
if that flies, I don't think they need to take the other risks that you're talking about.
Well,
they can just ride on that.
And it's also strange when you actually really look at the PlayStation 4's exclusives from this generation. There's a lot of formula here. There's a lot of single player narrative contained experience, which, don't get me wrong, the Xbox's lineup of exclusives has been pretty woeful, but what they've got have been very good. Forza is still excellent. Gears of War was a good enough Gears of War game. Halo 5 was.
Yeah, Halo 5 wasn't great.
No, it wasn't.
You've got to remember the more mediocre stuff that they have given a lot of airtime to.
Yeah,
Stuff
Sea of
like
Thieves and State of
Sea of
Decay.
Thieves, State of Decay, Crackdown 3,
Oh,
Recore.
oh yeah, Recore. I forgot about
Yeah.
Recore completely. Forgot about Recore.
So
But
no,
I
I
tell you
really
what,
enjoyed Recore, but there is a sense of sort of mediocrity around some of the exclusives, isn't there?
I tell you what, this E3 is going to be weird, man. Like
Yeah.
normally, I would try and have some time off work to really to watch everything live and to really get into it. But I'm not sure there's going to be a traditional conference situation. It's going to be after Microsoft's thing, I'm not sure there's a lot else to really get into here. And who knows what this is? It's going to be crazy. I mean, the whole industry is this strange place right now with games as a service and, this fragmentation of the old large publisher model that seems to be failing for EA and failing for Activision. Ubisoft has pivoted into these like games with these long tails now, and these continued 2-year developments at least for them. As we're seeing with Odyssey, and we're going to see with Division, and we're seeing with Siege, etc. It's a curious place, and now we're talking about streaming technology moving into this huge new avenue, and the Xbox on the Switch. I mean, what is all this craziness? I mean, it's like traditional hardware restrictions and publishing norms are just falling apart and morphing into this incredibly different gaming experience and gaming landscape. It's fascinating to watch and to really immerse yourself in because it's hard to predict. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. But
yeah,
it's difficult at the same time. It's difficult to get too hyped at the moment because it could go in any sort of direction at the moment. There's too much uncertainty around where the industry's going, and frankly, we mentioned Brexit at the start. Whether anyone can afford new consoles this year?
No, I mean, no, you're not wrong, mate. We might just be focusing on buying food for a while in the UK, which will just be fish and chips because we'll have none of that amazing imported food we've come to love. So that's going to be great. Can't wait for that. Can't wait. Right. So I just want to get back to a quick game. I didn't feel the need to do a video review discussion thing with you on because in many ways it's more of what you come to expect. But I've been really enjoying Trials Rising. Are you a Trials guy at all?
I have been. I don't know why I don't take any interest in Trials Rising. Maybe it's because that last Trials of the Blood Dragon thing put me off.
Oh, so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, even not including that, Trials Fusion, the previous proper Trials game, was all futuristic and quite austere aesthetics. Trials Rising takes us back to these globe-trotting, regionally themed
proper
theme
dirt
parks
tracks
of motorcycleness,
Yeah.
Dirt tracks are back and like crazy castles are back, and there's still all the track editors in there. But it's this huge world map filled with locations and hundreds of tracks. And you can customize your rider in various ways as well. And there are loot boxes, but I'll get to that in a minute. But it's great, man. It's like it feels like a return to form for Trials, somewhat like back to Trials and Trials Evolution. And it's priced accordingly. You can buy the base game for, I think, 20, or there's a deluxe edition with the DLC for 30. But I think a lot of people have missed this because it's come out amidst a lot of big Q1 game releases like Anthem and Metro and all of that. So it was easy to get lost in the shuffle. But yeah, if you're just looking for a game what I love about Trials is it's just skill. It's all about skill, learning how to drive that bike across these increasingly difficult courses, and it is punishing, but you can instantly restart a track or go to a checkpoint and you feel yourself getting better as you play it. And when you play a new Trials, it's like, God, you know what? I remember how to do this. It all starts coming back. But better than ever before, though, they've got this thing called Trials University. So if you're new to the game, or if you say never picked up those advanced skills, as you level up, these really well done tutorial courses unlock to give you sort of very granular training on how to do the more advanced things in trials, like bunny hopping and clearing really high vertical obstacles directly in front of you, from a standing position, and how to, like, when to put the weight on the back tire, when to put it on the front tire, all of that. And it's explained really, really well. Like I said, shit ton of courses. But let's quickly touch on the loot boxes, which, as always is the case on the internet right now, any game with a loot box gets piled on like it's Satan's own video game. And people just need to chill the fuck out. Seriously. These are cosmetic only. You get one for every time you level up, which you do a lot. Let me just say that again. Cosmetic only. They affect nothing to do with gameplay. So you can just completely ignore them. Like, it doesn't matter at all. And the only thing I do in trials with the cosmetics is I want to make my bike and my driver look as absolutely fucking ridiculous as is humanly possible. Yeah. So I will put the dumbest hat on them. I will put the silliest outfit I can. And that's all that matters. That's all that I want to do with that. I'm not looking to make... It's not a bloody Division, like, where you're trying to make your character look, grounded and realistic. Who gives a shit about your loot boxes, guys? Just chill out. Chill out. You can buy some premium currency if you want, but I don't know why you would. And I mean, if you do, like, great, that's your choice. And that's all it is. I mean, this is a game at 20 or 30 quid. Like, it's not £55 or 60 quid or whatever. So just, like, remember that. At its core, it's got some interface issues, I think, with the way you have to find the races by navigating the map. And it's sometimes not always that clear as to which ones you've done or attempted before. There's some UI design issues, but it doesn't really matter. Their load times are maybe a bit long to get into the tracks, but when you start driving, I tell you what, on the X, it's distractingly beautiful. There's so much awesome stuff. Yeah, honestly, there's so much awesome stuff going on in the background of most of these tracks that sometimes you'll crash because your eye has been drawn to the plane that's currently crashing through the sort of forest behind you in a fiery ball of 4K HDR gorgeousness. And it's just like, it's funny because I've been doing it, and the wife's been sat there watching me play, and she's like, did you see that? This is stunning. She actually more than Anthem, she goes, oh my God, this game. So beautiful. And I was like, what? Hadn't really even noticed, but, like, because I'm just literally looking at the wheels of my bike and timing when they touch down onto the track. And it's just like, I'm so focused on the next loop or crazy jump or how I can get 100 millionth of a second faster between this checkpoint and that one, that I'm not looking. But yeah, it's absolutely stunning on the One X. Really, really good looking game. Cool. And it's lots of fun. It's lots of fun. It's a nice break because there's so I'm so deep in these open world, shared world shooters. I've got Metro wasn't shared world, but huge game, and then Anthem, huge game, and I've got Division 2 next week, huge game. So it's nice. Just, do you know what? I'm just going to play like 3 tracks where it's just me and the physics, and that's all it is. Trials. It's very basic, very simple in many ways. 100% skill, and it's just timing and balance, and there's a purity to it. It's like playing Tetris. There is a purity to trials that is very, very enjoyable. I get into a zen state with it. And I'm the kind of person that I don't want to clear a track with any checkpoint use. So I have to go through one and done. So I will, as soon as I mess up a little bit, restart. As soon as I mess up a little bit, restart. All right, back to the beginning each time. It's got to be perfect. So I absolutely, great game. Really, really good game.
Yeah, it does look good. I'm tempted to go back to that. It's one of those games that's so simple, but there's much more to it than you realize. There aren't many games that actually use analog triggers in such an analog way. It's just, it feels like cracking a safe at times playing Trials, doesn't it?
So good.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's like, when sometimes it's so weird because it's counterintuitive. Like, you want to lean on the back wheel, but really you need to be leaning on the front wheel in this moment. You want to be accelerating, but actually what you should be doing is braking. And it is because it's just the crazy way physics interacts. It's very realistic. For the amount of absolute bonkers shit you're doing, it actually is kind of realistic. No, it's really, really good fun. I do recommend it a lot, and it's been overlooked, I think. And the only time I hear anybody talking about it's a loot boxes in a Trials game. It's ruined. Shut up! You don't know what you're talking about. So yeah.
Dear me. Yeah.
Have we played any other games? I mentioned Trials, Destiny, Anthem. Anything else you played you want to bring up?
No, I haven't been playing anything apart from. Oh no, I tell a lie. I've been playing Headlander.
Oh, I had to go on that as well, actually. Yes, the Adult Swim game that just came to Game Pass.
Yes, it's on Game Pass, and it's kind of a Metroidvania game in which you play a human head that can fly around on a rocket and then attach itself to various bodies. So
It's
the idea
mad.
is, it's mad, isn't it? So there's various robotic bodies dotted around, sort of civilian-looking bodies, and then you get more military-esque type bodies that are color-coded and enable you to go through the relevant doors. So the first soldiers that you'll see will be like red, and they enable you to shoot for the first time, and you can go through red doors. Then you might get like orange or yellow ones that can shoot a bit better, like stronger weapons or dual lasers, something like that. And then you can open more doors. And yeah, it's got this really good balance of combat in the bodies, and then you can jettison the body entirely, just fly around on the head and go through like tunnels and stuff. It's got I don't know, it's just got this really good balance to it of exploration, quite fun combat, although it's not particularly refined, and a funny sort of um, story background as well. It's just fun to play through. I'm really enjoying it.
Brilliant aesthetic, like
Yeah.
the look of the game and the sound design, and it's got this 70s sci-fi vibe, and it's all
Mate,
kind of
you know
browns and
we were talking about Silent Running a couple of weeks back, weren't
yeah,
we? You know
yeah,
that song in Silent Running?
yeah.
It's only got that in a
Oh,
slow
no
motion
way.
combat battle. Yeah, it's like a
Amazing.
slow motion shootout towards the middle of the game, and it's got that song in the background. It's awesome.
Wears its influences on its sleeve. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's a peculiar, but it's a great game, and it's a really good game if you've got Game Pass to check out. Really well made, just like high production standards for what could be quite a throwaway game. And like you said, it's got a silly story, but it's got lots of voice acting and narration, and it's all delivered really well, and has just a great tone to it, doesn't it? But I've got to mention this because it's one of our news stories. Is that I'd been hovering over buying this for quite a few, well, not that long because it hasn't been out very long, but I'm quite glad I didn't because Just Cause 4 has just come to Game Pass.
Yes.
Like, what is it with Square Enix published games lasting about 5 minutes before they approach Game Pass?
The new Tomb Raider already on there. Mad. It does make you think, should I be buying games anymore?
Not if it's Square Enix.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems that they are very aggressive about looking at their sales data, I'm assuming, and being like, well, let's drive maybe some DLC sales. Obviously, they get a cut of some revenue stream from Microsoft when they put them on Game Pass. But yeah, they are appearing very rapidly. Unlike a lot of other publishers, they are very aggressive about getting them onto this Netflix of gaming type system. And clearly are in very tight with Microsoft over it, which is fantastic. Many people have reported that Just Cause 4 isn't as good as 3, which obviously isn't as good as 2, and neither 3 or 4 run particularly well on the consoles from what I've heard. But why not give it a punt? I've got it downloaded. I'm going to give it a go at some point soon to see how it is. It looks like the open, sandbox of destruction. Nothing wrong with that. That sounds like a bit of fun for a few hours, especially when there's no real cost to you if you're already a member. So that's really cool.
You should be a member. It's such a good service.
It's gone from strength to strength. It really has. I mean, we were in the position, especially I was in the position. We get fortunate enough to get quite a lot of games for review and stuff. And I was like, is there much value for me on this? But honestly, there is. There really is. Like the diversity of titles that are coming up on Game Pass. For every batch that gets announced every month now, there's at least a couple I haven't played and I want to experience and I want to give a go. It really is good value, especially as I've just done it again. You can pretty much always get a Game Pass subscription for about half price, if not better. You really can. You never really need to pay full price for Game Pass because Xbox is very aggressive at promoting and encouraging you to stay in the service. So yeah, it's fabulous. It's a great. Yeah, you gotta check that out. I'm surprised you haven't checked it out yet. Actually, I know what you like. You like your Game Pass games, Rich.
I've not been playing as many games over the past couple of months. I think that's the thing. Maybe it's burnout because I was just absolutely hammering Xbox games right through to Christmas, and then this year just dropped off a bit.
Got to take a break. It's fine.
Yeah,
happens. Recharge. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to move into our last little story here with a quote from a tweet, which is kind of amazing. This is from THQ Nordic's head of marketing and PR. I do not condone child pornography, white supremacy, or racism. Direct quote. I think it's fair to say, if you're in charge of PR and marketing, if you ever have to utter those words, you might have fucked up. You might have fucked up somewhere pretty bad. I mean, you're literally hitting two reprehensible to the point of insanity things there. We were talking about child pornography and racism that there's never an excuse for. They're never okay. So if you're having to say, I don't condone them, okay. So let's get back to the beginning now. Let's rewind what happened here. So THQ Nordic decided to do an AMA. Now, they decided to do an AMA, if you don't know, and ask me anything, like an open Q&A session that's often held on internet forums such as Reddit, kind of the home of all internet forums now, Reddit. You know, it's fair enough. I see AMAs on there all the time. I'm a frequent user of Reddit. It actually gives me that little bit of feedback, like the ye old days of Brit Xbox's forums. I have that sort of sense of, you know, posting on there, a little bit of community aspect once you get known a little bit on these subreddits and stuff. And that's fine. That's a great place. What's not a good place for an AMA is 8chan. Now, you might go, what's 8chan? It's the evil spin-off of 4chan, which was already pretty awful. And 8chan is kind of a home to child pornography, white supremacy, racism, Nazism, extreme right-wing views, just kind of the worst, one of the worst places on the regular internet. You know, I'm not talking about the dark web or any of that shit, just on the regular internet. This is where the sort of horrible, sick subversives go, right? It's not a good place. And THQ Nordic thought, you know what? Video game publisher of such great games as Darksiders and The Blob and things like that. Let's go on there to do an AMA. This will be great. They were told by a guy from 8chan that he would keep the bad stuff out and everything would be grand. Well, it wasn't. Quickly things to do with child pornography came up and anti-Semitism. And the worst bit here is that the THQ Nordic guys, you know, this stuff has been subsequently removed, but please click on the link to the Eurogamer article covering all of this in detail in our show notes. But, you know, they started engaging with these posts, you know, and this becomes a problem when, as this started blowing up on Twitter to the THQ guys and stuff, as people were starting to complain vocally, you know, and continuously about what the hell are you doing on this place? Their apology and their excuse was, we didn't know it would be this bad. You know, we didn't do our due diligence. I don't believe you, because you engaged with these posts. You didn't outrage, you know, you didn't show outrage when you started getting these things. You didn't immediately go, this is disgusting, this is wrong, we shouldn't be on here, cut it. You know, they were doing this thing for about 2 hours while being told on social media that they should stop and that it was bad and they shouldn't be doing this. You guys knew what you were doing. You were courting controversy for the hopes of hits and coverage. And I think that's incredibly dangerous, incredibly ignorant, and incredibly wrong. And it's amazing that, you know, so the big CEO guy came out, and the co-founder of this whole thing, THQ Nordic AB, which is the guys that are parent company of THQ Nordic. I forget the GmbHs, like GmbH, which I don't know what that stands for, but that was the guy in charge of that, which is, what's his name? PR, Philip Brock, who's done all this, basically. And, you know, the CEO has said, oh, we've had meetings, you know, we've learned from this. I'm sorry, but Mr. Brock should have lost his job. I mean, there is no excuse.
Learn from it like it's an honest mistake.
He knew what he was doing.
They went into it saying that someone was going to take care of the nasty stuff. They knew what they were going into.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he'll keep the worst elements of the child pornography and the racism and the anti-Semitism out of the AMA, but still, you know, the few odd little bit snuck through. Oh, that'll be okay. Guys, you knew what you were doing, right? Mr. Brock here, Philip Brock, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to generate, being edgy, edgelording it up, trying to get, you know, clicks and interest. Oh, we'll do an AMA on 8chan. It's going to be great. You know, it's an underserved, you know, demo we can get more sales from, you know, for Darksiders 3 because it's not done that great. And, you know, we can promote that we've got the Time Splitters brand now. Oh, that those child pornography lovers, they'll love Time Splitters, you know, that's their jam. Mate, you fucking asshole. When this blew up a week or two ago, the end of February, I just couldn't believe what I was reading. Like, sometimes you read this stuff, nah, that can't be right. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go there to do that, would you? You wouldn't go to 8chan to do that. Are you just mad? You just what? I mean, so what did you think, Richard? Because you kind of didn't notice this when it happened live, but I've sent you the story to read through it and stuff. And what were what's your take on this?
I'd seen the story. Well, what can you say? It's just astoundingly naive, isn't it? Well, either naive or just disgustingly cynical.
That I think it's the latter, honestly.
Someone would take that kind of material and reputation and think, I can leverage that. You just don't go there. You know, and certainly if you want to go there, you can't come out later and say, oh no, sorry, we didn't realize that there'd be a negative element to this. Just, well, you've got into that bed, now you've got to sleep in it. Sorry. I think this will do them quite some harm.
Going back a few years, video game marketing was much more edgy, you know, and intentionally provocative, and on that side, sometimes quite often on the wrong side of bad taste. You'd have events, you know, in like slaughterhouses, you know, with cadavers, you know, fake human bodies strung up on hooks for horror games. Obviously, these are the people that came up with the idea of booth babes, half naked women, you know, draped over cars to try and promote video games. I mean, truly dated and like completely outmoded concepts of marketing. And nowadays it's much harder to get interest in your product, in your brand, because, you know, for many cases, the right reasons, we don't condone such levels of sexism and exploitative violence or disgusting language just to, you know, get people interested in a product, you know. And I think some people would argue that that's PC culture and SJW culture. I hate using that word, but I think that's the way most people would think of it. Gone crazy, you know, that's pushing it. You know, we've lost too much of the fun of these awful events and stuff like that. But it's just tone deaf. I mean, if that's what he was trying to do, he obviously, the point I'm trying to make is marketing now. They still look for these things, and he must have thought, oh, this is something we can do to be a bit risque and get out there a bit to you know, and create clicks. And in many ways, it's worked, because we're talking about THQ Nordic right now because of what they've done. So, you know, it's the old adage of, you know, no press is worse than bad press, isn't it? So it's like, you know, they are being discussed, and this is now in people's minds, but for so the wrong reason. And you've got to wonder, is that why he didn't lose his job? You know, is that why? Because Mr. CEOs went, well, it's worked. All these people are talking about us and our games, aren't they? You know, so you did your job as a marketing executive. Well, what do you think?
I don't know. No one's talking about their games, are they? You know, I think, yeah, it's, I don't know.
So one of his comments is, I'm just reading here, this was not about being edgy. This blew up, and I very much regret having done it in the first place. But you knew what you were doing, Philip Brock. You really did. I just can't. You know, I agreed to do this AMA without doing my proper due diligence to understand the history and the controversy of the site. I do not condone child pornography, white supremacy, or racism in any shape or form. I mean, good, because you shouldn't.
That's right.
But I'm terribly sorry for my short-sightedness of my decision, and I promise to be far more vigorous in my assessment of these activities in the future. I mean, it feels so boilerplate. It's so bullshit. I don't believe a word of it. But like, you know, we don't want to go back. We don't, you know, and transgress back into these shock, edgy kind of marketing campaigns of the 90s and stuff. It's just not, if you want the video game culture to get accepted into the wide, you know, the mainstream, I think we're finally getting out of the shadow of Gamergate and all of that horribleness from a few years back. People don't, seemingly moving on from that, as
That's
the
because they're
industry's
in the
moving
White
towards the next
House now,
generation.
Ben.
Oh, well, yeah, it's true. But, well, yeah, I guess, mate, is this a response to that? Is it a response to, well, you've got this shock jock of a president, so maybe we can go back to things like that. Maybe that was him thinking culturally it was okay.
Yeah, it has pushed the envelope a bit on what's acceptable. But yeah, if the intention was, like you say, to sort of push for outrage and get some clicks, then maybe we're helping him by talking about it so much.
Maybe. But, just to be clear, that was really fucking stupid. Just to be clear. So from that jock perspective to the end of the show here, Richard, was there anything you'd like to bring up to court some controversy?
Oh, controversy. Have you watched speaking of paedophiles and that, have you watched the Michael Jackson
I have not. I've heard about it, but I haven't watched it. Is it worth checking out?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I never liked him anyway. I've always thought he was guilty of it. So it was never like, it's not shocking to me that there's a documentary about how much of a sick man he was, because I always thought he was, but it was quite clear. But I think what's interesting is the vehemence with which his fans defend him.
No, that's it. Yeah, it's mad how unquestioning they are about this man who indisputably shared a bed with 7-year-old children that he didn't know, night after night after night. And there's a bit in there in this documentary where he asks one of the parents, "Do you mind if I keep your son for a year?" And she said no, but fuck, what sort of man asks that? It's just absolutely insane that anyone can defend what this guy did. I mean, you can argue maybe I believe them, but you could argue that the people leveling accusations at him now are at the least maybe exaggerating what happened, but indisputably he did sleep with children regularly, and that is just not normal, is it? That's not a normal thing for an adult male to do.
It's the same problem we had with the Catholicism's defense of their priests. It's that these peoples in all positions of authority, if you especially go back historically, positions of authority, power, and respect, and fame, if you like, back then locally anyway, abusing their power. And the problem is now in this famous culture with in which Michael Jackson obviously reached millions and millions and millions of people. He was to a degree untouchable. Due to the influence and the power he had, he could get away with this. And there was a similar documentary recently about R. Kelly as well, with the same thing, where he was untouchable, unreachable by law, by police, because he was defended by fame, notoriety, money, and power.
And defended by the very people that he abused. It's incredible how that works. But yeah, watch this documentary. You'll see how the reason that Michael Jackson got off was because the people that he was hurting stood up for him.
Well, while we're in documentary corner, Richard, I watched a fantastic documentary on Netflix called Behind the Curve, which is the Flat Earthers documentary.
Yes, I've seen. Well, I've not seen it. I've seen it pop up.
Please watch it. Yeah. It's a fascinating case of they were very fair documentarians. They didn't go in with an agenda. They just let the Flat Earthers strangle themselves. Where it's like you don't need to be taken down, because if you watch and listen to these people long enough, they take themselves down. Like they really do. You don't need to do anything to help that, because there's infighting. And I love there's a brilliant bit where they try to use experimentation to prove the Earth is flat, and it proves it's round. And all they do is say, well, that experiment wasn't right then. We need to keep doing some more experiments until we get the results we want. And it's incredible. Like it's literally a cult levels. One guy is basically has risen to the top of this, and he clearly knows it's bullshit, but he's just leveraging it for power and fame. And you kind of have to respect that. Like he's so obviously knows it's crap, but he's just going to keep spouting it. And it's fascinatingly well done. And I feel like these guys, my takeaway from it was they're not stupid, these people. They're just lost. Like, they've been failed by the scientific establishment, by society, by the political establishment, and they feel like they've got nothing else to turn to other than this crazy community, which is so out there that when you join it, you're welcomed because, you know, they literally will take anyone into their arms. And there's a great sense, you know, that gives them people a sense of belonging, and because they're just lost from the rest of the world. And it is fascinatingly well done. Yeah, really, really enjoyable. And just, yeah, it's just the things that come out of their mouths. You'll just be sat there going laughing because it's like, you're what now? You what now? It's so good. It's so good. You should definitely watch it. Very entertaining.
I might watch it this afternoon.
Yeah, so I think well, that's anything else you wanted to bring up, you've maybe watched, or anything you want to touch upon? If not, we'll wrap up this little episode.
No, I can't think of anything else. Let's wrap
I just say this: our viewers and subscribers has been growing really well recently. So welcome to all our new followers and stuff. Please add us on Twitter and stuff at Experience Kills. Like and subscribe to the videos. It really, really helps with visibility for the channel. Stellaris went down really well, that video. You know, we've had some great comments on the Anthem video as well, which is fantastic to see. I'm really glad people are enjoying what we're producing in this new format. It seems to be going great. And we're going to kind of keep it the same cadence. We're not forcing content for the sake of it. It's kind of like when there's something we want to get into, we will. And that's going to continue, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yep, I think so.
We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, got an RSS feed. If you can't watch this stuff, you can listen. Open to feedback. So please, anything you guys, you know, questions, suggestions, drop them in the video comments, drop them on Twitter. Monitoring all that all the time, so please do. Yes, so yeah, just come and hang out with me and Rich for the most part.
Please do.
Yeah. I think, you know, one thing I'm excited about, Richard won't be, but next week is the start of the new Formula One season. I'm very excited about that. Gonna start doing my weekly solo Formula One podcast for you guys to listen to.
I saw Chemical Brothers are doing the new Sting for the TV coverage.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Amazing.
They've remixed a track at something like 25,000 BPM. So
oh my god,
you can hear the entire track in 3 seconds, and that's
my god. That's crazy.
It's phenomenal.
I love it. That's just another. Yeah, I mean that's what's happening with Formula One right now. They are reaching out. They are, because there's new people in charge of it. They're trying to appeal to new audiences. So because of that, they are going to these people and creators and artists and, you know, different avenues that you wouldn't normally expect to try and get out to new viewers and new fans, as it were. So I think Formula One is going to be, you're going to see it in more and more places. It's going to start appearing all over. But yeah, it's my favorite sport, and I'm excited it's back. So I will promise not to talk about it all the time, Richard.
Thank you.
So I think with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for joining me, Rich.
Thank you. Speak to you all again soon, hopefully. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, and we'll be back. I'm pretty sure I'll be doing a video about the division. I might rope you in for the other side of that, Rich, if you're okay with that at some point in the next week or two.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome. We'll be back with that soon. Bye.
Bye.